All right, here we go. And it's connecting on these two platforms. And I guess we are live on Instagram. Hello, everybody. And it's going to be with a little bit of the delay on Facebook. All right, let me close Facebook. It seems like we're live. Hey, everybody, and hello. You guys see my guest on the screen if you're watching us on Facebook, on Hummingbird Academy Today page, and we are live on Instagram, Zhanna_1. So welcome to Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And here on the program, as you know, every week on Wednesdays, we are talking with special guests, and these are experts in different fields. Today, my guest on the show is the incredible returning guest. It's Scott Sargeant, who is an amazing individual. I don't invite anybody who is less than that. And Scott, you are the returning guest for so many different reasons. Let me read, guys, for those of you who see Scott or hear or will hear him for the first time, I'm going to share the official bio, and then I'm going to add my personal flavor to what this individual and this soul is all about, because I've known him for many years already. Okay, so just a little bit, just the gist. So Scott Sargeant, he is the TEDx speaker and your champion's mindset coach. Scott Sargeant is the founder of the Sargeant Group, a coaching, training, and inspirational speaking organization dedicated to helping business professionals gain a competitive edge by increasing revenues and profits while at the same time creating more balance and freedom with their personal time, fitness, and fulfillment. So this is incredible, and I want to just let everybody know. Let me double check what's happening with, oh, I don't know what happened with the live on Instagram, but we'll see if it's something that I can fix a little bit later. But for those of you who are watching us on Facebook, I just want to add, guys, that Scott is an incredible human being. And not only his personal story is really powerful. You can catch the video of his TEDx presentation where he's sharing this really touching, very inspiring, beyond inspiring personal story. And also what he's doing in his coaching career is absolutely bringing value beyond expected to everybody who comes his way. So Scott, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Zhanna. It's great seeing you. Great being back.
You are welcome. And I'm just going to be asking you the first question, as I will try to go live on our Instagram account too, for everybody who can join that way. So my first question, Scott, what really drives you in life? And one of the other ways I usually start is, what is your big dream, personal and professional, both? Or you can just go take another angle, like what really drives you? What are you after in life?
Yeah, well, I would probably say one of my absolute biggest drivers is I just have a total passion for contributing to others, making a difference for people, and sharing my life experience, the many gifts that I've been given, the hardships that I've overcome, and learned some very difficult lessons, but ones that I love to be able to share and help other people have hopefully easier journeys. And to get to dance and play in the really magical space that shows up for me, whether it's in speaking and coaching particular, and even in some of the healing work, I'm kind of a covert or stealth healer. It's not something I publicly promote, but through my own healing journey, I've cultivated some profound gifts there. So it's just I was in a program a while back that said there's three main pathways in life. There's art, spirituality, and community, and then beauty, truth, and goodness. And I thought being an Eagle Scout and, really always committed to doing good, that mine would be about goodness and truth, but actually it was about beauty. So I just love that kind of transcendent experience of blending with the divine. And that's something I got to experience as an athlete with, my body and all the forces and the dynamic experience and the full out engagement and exhilaration there. I still get some of that in the outdoors. But the biggest joy and satisfaction for me is out of contributing to others.
I love the fact that you mentioned beauty, and when you say beauty, you definitely mean beauty inside and out, correct?
Yeah, and even just like the physical and I'll say sensual elements of beauty. A lot of your audience may not be familiar with the hammer throw of track and field, which was my specialty back in my college and post-collegiate Olympic days. But it's a 16-pound ball. So if you can imagine a bowling ball at the end of a 4-foot wire, and you swing it around a couple times, but then you pivot and you're basically doing like a ballet, pirouette with this 16-pound ball at the end. So it gets to weigh over 500-600 pounds by the end of this. But it's you'd think it's a really brutish, muscle, caveman kind of thing. And it's got that element, but more than anything, it's a really sophisticated, elaborate dance with the hammer and these huge forces, but you've got to have a really elegant balance, and it really comes down to the technique and this really rhythmic, dynamic, and even explosive and rapturous experience. So to me was the greatest juice about it. And of course it was fun being, top ranked and all that kind of stuff. Those were kind of the icing on the cake, really, of the real meal was that juicy experience, which I realized what so lit me up and resonated for me was the beauty. And again, that sort of sacred blending, with the divine.
That is so powerful. Now, for those of you, we're live, by the way, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on Instagram. So we're back to live. I know what I what I did accidentally, all this technology, but we're back to it, and we are with Scott Sargeant, who is a TEDx speaker and also an amazing business coach who is blending healing in his work too. So Scott, for some of the people who again hear you for the first time, could you please share before they watch, and I really strongly recommend to watch the TEDx talk that Scott did several years ago. It was a breakthrough point for you personally, as much as I know, and it was really beyond inspirational for me to watch, and a lot of other people who actually caught it. But could you share, like, very briefly, your personal story that led you to helping so many others to really get into this Olympic? I keep saying Olympic, I can't help it.
That's fine. That's accurate.
Champion mindset, but we'll dive right into the questions that I prepared and I hear from so many people, especially nowadays. So what's the personal story that led you to this moment?
Well, just to, I was actually in 2 Olympic trials and top 10 in the US for a 5-year span. So the word Olympic is definitely a big part of my life experience and my big dream before. So I should check with you. Do you want me to spoiler alert, share the big juicy reveal of my TED Talk, or keep that in suspense?
I would keep that in suspense.
All right.
I will let you guys watch Scott's TED Talk. Just talk about.
Sure. Well, it'll be very, very shocking, and yeah, it's profound what I reveal in my TEDx talk, a secret that I'd kept for 18 years. But I'll tell what's probably half the story, which is juicy enough. So I grew up with a passion for, sports, and grew up in soccer and baseball, but also was a really good student. So I went to UC San Diego to study engineering. And then I stumbled into this thing called the hammer throw of track and field. So sometimes I joke that I majored in hammer throwing and minored in engineering, because there was so much, energy and dedication to that. But I really got lit up. I was talented, but I worked really hard. I was super passionate about it. I had a great coach. And in just a couple of years, I won a collegiate championship. I was a 2-time collegiate champion, broke the collegiate record, and then found myself in the Olympic trials. So I went very quickly from that, big fish in the little pond to little fish in the big pond. But then I worked myself up into the top 10, saw that Olympic dream of the top 3, being in striking distance. Mind you, I'm on top of training 20 to 30 hours a week toward the Olympics. I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours a week as an engineer in an aerospace company. So, by the way, on the side, I founded a nonprofit to support and develop amateur athletes and was doing leadership, personal development training work through a couple organizations. So anyway, but I'm, coming in on the 2000 games, working with the world record holder, things seem to be coming together. And then I had a very dramatic and unplanned turn of events. Went headfirst down a flight of concrete steps, landed on my head and shattered 2 bones at the base of my neck, badly crushed my spinal cord, and woke up in the hospital, literally paralyzed from the neck down, being told that I would never walk again.
Yeah.
And you might imagine this was just extremely devastating, overwhelming news. Not only was my Olympic dream shattered in an instant, but then, am I ever even going to walk again? And, what kind of life am I going to have after this? And in the bottom of my despair, my coach called me on the phone and said, okay, well, are you going to fight and make yourself well or give up and quit? And I couldn't believe that he would challenge me at that low point, But in response to that, what came out of my mouth is, I'm going to fight and make myself well. I'm going to recover 100% and walk out of here. And he said, okay, great. That's what we'll do. And I'll share real quickly. I didn't have complete faith or knowing that was going to happen, but I knew there was tremendous power in making that declaration, literally just speaking that into existence, and then having the vision, so that goal to point toward. Now, instead of the Olympic gold medal, it became just walking out of here, right?
Yeah.
And I had the power of my coach and my close inner circle and teammates to support me in that in the times that it was hard for me to hold that space and that focus. But I drew upon all the things that I trained into my, every fiber of my being for decades as an Olympic athlete and higher achiever in life. We ended up creating my own recovery program. And the short story is I walked out of the hospital under my own power after just 6 weeks.
That is an incredible story just in itself. And what I want to ask you, Scott, regarding this story, the power of coach, you just said it. We hear it all the time. We do have coaches. It's wonderful to have coaches, but not just coaches, but the right ones. Do you have a strategy on how to pick the right coach for you? Who is the right coach?
Yeah, it's a really, really brilliant question. And I would even preface that with saying that everybody has coaches in their life and everybody has coaches all around them. And they may not realize that. They may have unwittingly stumbled into those coaching relationships. They don't call it that or not formal, but everyone is influencing you in some way. So, in picking a coach, some of the keys are definitely, it'd be great to have somebody that's been successful in the area or toward the goal that you want to achieve. It's one of the reasons that I was working with, the American record holder, the top coaches and athletes in the United States. I was one of the first athletes down at the Olympic Training Center in San Diego. And then I started working with the world record holder, who had a very high, extremely high level of knowledge and expertise with the technique and the training methods of the hammer throw. But my head coach that I had chosen was someone that I met through the personal development and training arenas, because I realized that there were inner limits that I had in my own psychology, my thought process, my energy, emotions, that were part of what I literally needed to almost change my personality or who I was. To become not just that, top in the US, but one of the top athletes in the world. And
Yeah.
so it's really important to find someone, I would say, that that resonates with you. You've got to have some kind of rapport that's an empowering relationship, and you've got to have someone that is able to stretch you, is able to challenge you, and also and encourage you. And that's the balance I try to navigate with my clients. It's a really I think it's a really highly developed skill and a fine skill to know when to push and when to challenge someone and when to confront them, like my coach did at a time when you would think, oh my God, everybody else is saying, oh, this is so terrible. We're so sorry. What a tragedy. The doctors are kind of like, how can we best make the best of this terrible thing and learn to live with it? And my coach was like, no, you have this, ability within you that you can go beyond this. And that's another, huge thing in having a coach that can see your higher self, see your potential, and reflect that to you in a way that it reinforces your belief.
Exactly.
It was something that I had very much with my college coach. He believed in me in a way that I hadn't really had an athletic coach believe in me before. And so in addition to my own passion, and drive to excel, he helped reinforce my belief that I could actually do that. And then I did, and I'm sure I had better results than I would have on my own. Of course, everybody, knows that, of course. But having the right coach is really important. And recognizing if you don't have the most empowering relationship, or if you have a disempowering relationship with a coach, have the awareness and the courage to change it. So I think those have been some good nuggets.
Yes, I totally agree with you on the fact that a coach is someone who has who sees the potential in you that you are not able to see yet, and then it also is the one who can push you at the right moment, like you said. So this is a perfect segue to the question of the topic we're discussing today. How would you define the difference? What is champion mindset? I still want to call it Olympic mindset, because
It's fine. It's totally fine. It's interchangeable.
Okay. So what defines it? And I will kind of preface it with the two things. There are two kinds of people according to there are so many divisions, but some people who are considered people who run a marathon and who are the sprinters, right? Marathon runners and the sprinters. Like, I personally am not a marathon runner as a creative, right? I have my just like the rhythms and cycles. So when you talk about the Olympic mindset, could you please address how would that apply? Can only a marathon runner be achieving and achieving and achieving, or it could be applicable for these two types of people? Did I make my...
This is, and I love getting to dive into these conversations and not only, reveal some of the, the sort of overarching ideas, but get more into the nitty gritty. Decently in the time we have, there's only so much we're going to be able to cover. Literally it was the training that helped me overcome, being told, hey, you're paralyzed, you're never going to walk again. And sometimes when people ask me how you did it, it's like I built Mount Everest with the grains of sand. Every little thing that I could do, from my mindset, the visualization, the focus, the determination, the support of my coach, bringing in my own nutrition and water and fueling my nerves, nourishing my nerves to recover, refusing the pain meds, and then organizing my environment to support me. And these are my three keys I'm kind of giving you to transform your environment in a way that supports you and calls you forth to what you want, and minimize or eliminate the things that are against you. Most people would agree that a hospital is not the most friendly or nourishing environment. So, but I transformed that and took it over to the degree that I could. It's a lot has to do with your clarity of your vision. I would say the biggest thing that I could think of, and I was thinking a little bit about your audience and this conversation today, is to identify that burning desire. So, saying you're going to win a gold medal, or saying you're going to run a marathon, or saying you're going to reach a certain goal in a business, that's the what, and you can even have the how, right? You could have a coach or mentor. You could read a book. These days, you can go on the internet and get, umpteen numbers of strategies for how to do anything, from baking a cake, to making $1 billion. There's literally books on how to be a multimillionaire and a billionaire. So, or how to have an extraordinary relationship, right? How many people read more than 1 or 2 books on those subjects? But it's really the why, the connecting with that burning desire. And I would suggest that's more important. And from there, through that lens or filter, you identify the what. You look for an avenue, a pathway, or you could say a vehicle, and how to express that in the world. And, it's kind of like picking where you want to go on a map, right? You want to go on a vacation, an adventure, whatever. You start by picking a destination, right? And then you go. But then what happens along the way? Life, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Run out of gas, the car can't make it up the hill, you get lost, you decide, I want to go stop at this diner instead, all these different choices and options come up as you move forward along that path. But when you have that burning desire, you will find a goal or an avenue for that expression, but you don't have to be limited by that. And that's the other thing I'd like to draw out in this conversation. I was much more fixed and rigid in my mindset as an athlete, as an engineer, an engineering student, an engineering professional, and then related to the pursuit of the Olympics. So there's a certain amount of focus that is important to be able to maximize your achievement down any particular avenue, or again, toward a goal that you've selected. But it's really important to have flexibility in how you get there, and then even have flexibility and assess, is this the right goal for me? Is this what I really, really want to do? And then is this even the appropriate and most, aligned or resonant, pathway or again, vehicle or target for me to express that toward? Because if you really think about it, there's tons of different ways you could have that kind of experience and that level of being. And the journey that I went through, very unplanned on the physical plane. I did recover and throw the hammer and discus. I tried to get back to that Olympic level. I didn't get quite to that level, but I got happy every day, active recreational athlete. And I shifted gears. I ran triathlons. I hiked Mount Whitney a few years ago, the tallest mountain in the 48 states. So I've continued to challenge and push myself, and in a more of an enjoyment and in a balanced sense, because I don't feel the need to be the best in the world in the athletic arena anymore. I do it in a way that's fun and fulfilling and resonant for me. So that's there, but I'll kind of wrap this a little bit with, you may have heard this saying, ready, fire, aim. And one of my mentors talked about building the plane as you fly it. I'm like, the engineer in me hates those ideas. And to some degree, the Olympic athlete, right? You have a very specific goal, and you better have a good plan, and you better have at least some kind of evidence that that plan's going to work if you want to maximize your ascent, to that goal. But there is a genius in just starting and aim and go, toward that target. But then the ready, fire, aim part, I like the aim after the fire. Hopefully I'm not getting too, verbose here. Is that correction? Is that navigation? Is that flexibility? And that's part of where a coach can be so valuable in helping identify when you are off track to quickly make that correction. 1 or 2 degree shift when you're starting out, if the difference could be, from LA to Miami or New York, right? But if your coach is able to help keep you adjusting, very quickly, you can maximize your forward progress.
Thank you, Scott. In regards to that, there's another question that I have. You know what usually stops the majority of people is the piece when you start comparing yourself to others. Could you speak to that? Because that's huge, especially on social media right now. You're talking about athletes. I'm sure I don't know anything about the athletes or athletics world. I'm not a sports person, but I know your story because I've watched the TED Talk. And the link, by the way, is on Facebook underneath the post and underneath the video. So I really, really encourage you guys to listen to Scott's full story. But back to the question. What could you speak to comparing yourself to how do you stop that, or how do you not let it in and take it personally?
Yeah, it's a really, really brilliant question, and like incredible awareness to have, just to start with that awareness, because until you have awareness, you're just, you don't really have a choice in the matter. But I'll go a little bit roundabout. One of my favorite acronyms that I use to guide myself and also my clients is ABE, A-B-E. So Abraham Lincoln is one of my, idols, and someone that I really look up to in history. The incredible adversity that he dealt with and overcame, and literally, held our nation together. So on top of, big personal tribulations. But the ABE acronym stands for always be empowered. Always be empowered. And so there are ways that comparing yourself to somebody can be empowering. To some degree, I look at a Tony Robbins and the level of success and impact that he's had in speaking in his work is something I aspire to. Now, do I want to be exactly like him in every way? No. Right? But there's a positive comparison that can happen there. That's an empowering one. But again, without the awareness, which you pointed to, right, by just asking the question, you don't really know. So you can ask yourself, gosh, is this comparison empowering or disempowering? Right? And so if you recognize that it's disempowering, one of the best ways to do that's very simple that I can offer to you and your audience right now is what we call substitution. So it's just like switch. In improv, they have a game they call change, where you're talking and you're going through a certain avenue, and they say change, and you've just got to instantly turn to a different direction. And I know you've studied and played quite a bit with
I love
and so forth. So literally it's, or you could say, stop one, start one. So you find a new person, a new habit, a new goal, whatever it is, to just literally plug in place of that old one. Because we only have so much time, we only have so much focus. Our brain can literally only engage with one thing at a time. It's not even the second thing. It really is the first thing, is just the awareness and asking that question. Is this empowering for me to compare myself to that person?
Nice.
My other absolute favorite quotes that I sent to you, we'll give a little spoiler in advance here, was from Einstein. And he said, imagination is more important than knowledge.
Yeah, I love that quote. I also live by it.
And part of what is embedded in that for me, or that points to, as what I'll say, that questions are more important than answers. When you give someone an answer, they debate about it. Our brain goes to work and analyzes it and says, do I agree, disagree? Do I want to take this part of that or whatever? But when you ask a question of this amazing supercomputer that we all have, it will go to work on finding the best possible solution that it can. So if you ask yourself, is this an empowering or disempowering relationship, you'll get some great answers out of that. If you give yourself time to slow down, to really sit with that, to reflect, to allow, to evaluate it, through different filters and perspectives. But when you come up with the answer, no, it's not empowering, right? It's a disempowering relationship. Good to know I'll just say play the change game for first. So what could you look to identify something that at least looks better from where you're at and switch your focus to that. And then by default, it's going to have to minimize your focus on that other thing. And then there's, of course, other strategies that we could work on to address the inner game around that.
That's awesome. And before we switch gears, one more, and because I know that time is precious, and I just want to bring as much value because you're incredible, Scott. Thank you so much for all the insights. Plus, you've lived it, and you're the living proof that everything you're saying works, and it works not only for you, but for people you're serving too. By the way, guys, everybody, there's a link to the course that Scott created. I think it's on Teachable, right? And the name of the course is From Stress to Power. I listened to that. It's a gift to everybody who is listening and watching us, and I really encourage you to check this out because it's definitely, these are the simple, Scott just broke it down to the nitty-gritty and very simple steps on how to really eliminate stress and go into the power or empowered mode again. So thank you for creating that course, and thank you for sharing it with all of us. Scott,
Absolutely.
now the one more question. A lot of right now, because of the world, like global situation, there's a lot of people who are in fear, and fear of different sorts. It could be fear of the unknown, it could be fear of losing the job, it could be the fear of I don't know what. There's a lot of shades of that fear. What would you say to people to everybody who is watching and listening right now? How do you alter your relationship with fear? Because fear is real and it's physical. It's on the physical plane first, and then it goes into all the other planes, right? I know you're an expert in that. So from your Olympic mindset.
Oh my gosh, Zhanna, this is like, I love this. We could talk for hours and days on this. I mean,
I totally know that.
juicy,
But
and this being so so relevant right now. I don't know, I want to say something, like I want to challenge what you just said and say, like, the effects of fear or the effects of focusing on fear, the effects of getting wrapped up in fear can be very real. Fear itself is really an interpretation. It really is a filter. And gosh, again, there's so many places to go with this. I'll say one of the things that was monumental in me being able to walk out of that hospital instead of being in a power wheelchair for the rest of my life, what most of the doctors were telling me would be the case, was that I was able to shift my focus, not all the time, but as much as I could. And I don't even know if I would say it was the majority of the time, but it was enough of the time on what did I want and what could I do, as opposed to what I did not want and what I did not want to do. So a simple sports analogy I'll give, and I don't know if another one will come up, but in soccer, when there's a tie at the end of the game, they have penalties. It's sudden death, right? They have a shootout where each team gets penalty kicks. And that's kind of like hammer throwing. Is forget about the whole game. We go right to sudden death. You got 6 throws. Most in Olympic competition is 3 and then 3. Anyway, if you look at the goalie, you're much more likely to kick the ball right to the goalie. Whereas you look at or have that awareness of which corner of the goal you want to kick the ball, you're much more likely to be successful in scoring that goal. So managing your focus on exactly what you want as opposed to what you don't want, and then managing your focus on, managing yourself on, your focus and your activity on what you can do as opposed to what you can do or can't do, what you have, and what you don't have, where you want to go as opposed to where you don't want to go, right?
Yeah, it's a gift.
In another, this sports analogy again, but in racing, you know, these race cars going around a track at 200 miles an hour. One of the things they say when they spin out, no, whatever you do, don't look at the wall. You literally turn your head and look away from the wall, and somehow you find a way to go away from the wall. Much more likely to avoid a crash than if you, and that's where the fear is. The more you look at the wall, oh my gosh, I'm going to crash. And then you go closer to it, oh my gosh, I'm going to crash. The fear becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
I want to make another distinction. I know you'll have to cut me off probably here, but I love movies too. It's another passion of mine. And there's this movie called Chasing Mavericks, which is, I call it kind of like the Rocky of surfing movies. You know, this guy's
Chasing what? Chasing what?
Chasing Mavericks.
Oh, okay.
Mavericks. And like I said, I call it kind of the Rocky of surfing movies. So this guy's teaching this young kid, 16-year-old kid, how to surf one of the biggest waves in the world. It's called Mavericks in Northern California. And they're out actually swimming in the ocean. His coach is training him, and they find a calm day and they go under the water and they're looking at the reef. And this is the danger where you can get really badly hurt, but it's also what causes the wave. You know, there's so much dichotomy in life, right? Fear in the anxiety in the Olympic arena is part of what helps you get that adrenaline in that peak performance state. You can perform better when it's on the line, but it's how you manage that. So anyway, they dive down and they're free diving. They're looking at the reef, and then they look up, they're getting ready to go up, and this shark goes over, this huge great white shark. And the young kid starts to panic, and he starts to swim up toward the surface. And his coach, you know, the older guy, holds onto his leg, and he's like, no, just wait. You know, they wait for another 30 seconds or a minute. The shark goes by, and then they swim up to the surface and jump out. And his coach, he says, well, what happened down there? And the kid says, well, I don't know. You know, I panicked. And he said, that's right. Well, fear is normal, right? And fear is even healthy. It's a healthy response to help you avoid danger, and it can even keep you alive. But panic can be deadly. Panic can be what gets you killed. He was going to swim toward that thing that was the very danger that you'd want to avoid, right? Go to an unsafe place. So what I've observed and witnessed about this current, I've called it panic epidemic, right? Is getting caught up to that cycle of fear to a point where if you look at the facts, I think the facts tell a very different story than where the culture and the media and all these things have gone to, beyond fear into a place of panic. Panic is irrational. Panic is dangerous. And I've even noticed myself a couple times I've inadvertently watched the news, and I can feel myself starting to feel that anxiety and oh my gosh. It's like, wait a minute. There's such an opportunity now.
Absolutely.
There are billionaires, and you know, Jeff Bezos of Amazon's probably going to become the first trillionaire. You know, love him or hate him, agree or disagree. Hey, he's something that now is in more demand than ever. And you know, how many people are home now with families where they haven't had the time with their spouse or their children, you know, that they might love to have? How many people now have the chance to finish or start a degree, or those improv classes, or, you know, the dance videos, you know, taking care of their health, well-being, to dream, to actually sit there and be quiet, right? And you know, that's a whole other epidemic in our culture. So busy, we often don't take so much time to sit with ourselves. And I would say that's a key to the champion's mindset to being an Olympian. You're always assessing not just your outer world and progress, but your inner world, you know, your state, your feel, your emotions. And one of the most critical things in achievement as an athlete is actually, it's counterintuitive, but it's rest. You know, you work out as hard as you can, you push your limits, but if you don't rest, eventually you're going to burn out or get injured. So rest, ironically, counterintuitively, is actually one of the absolute most important things toward achievement in any arena.
That's brilliant. And when you say rest, a lot of us start judging ourselves for resting, for doing nothing. And that's another piece to to rest. And I just love it that you mentioned that. That's that Olympic training depends on rest, and that is also an estimate for achieving and overachieving whatever you want for yourself in life. That is beautiful. Scott, we can talk for hours. I know you're gonna be back. Guys, Scott is gonna be back for sure. I can't get enough of you anytime I talk to you.
It's an awesome
And
conversation.
just very briefly, we are wrapping up. Anything, well, I'm gonna send the list of books, but could you name just one, just one book that if you had to give a present to somebody else, you would give that specific book? If it's too difficult of a task, pick two, one for personal development, one for business, if you want to.
You know, I'm going to go slightly off the reservation, especially since you're sharing a list of some really very powerful books that I've read that have really made a difference on my journey. But there's this little kind of off the beaten path book that I stumbled across called Zen in the Martial Arts. And it's by a guy named Joe Hyams. It's a pretty short book, and it's got a lot of these little chapters. He trained extensively with Bruce Lee and all these other martial arts experts, but it was so much about the inner game and the life lessons, and they were applied to such a broad degree of different areas of life. And so it was something that, you know, I think I may have particularly liked from my athletic background, but just here's another, you know, really heightened thing to cultivate is when you could take the distinctions and the success principles that you've learned in one area of your life and learn how to model and apply that to another area. Consistency as an athlete is paramount, is absolutely essential. If you're, you know, work a little at your business every once in a while, you know, whenever you feel like it, when it's sunny outside, you go to the beach instead. You know, when your relationship, if it's going bad, you know, you don't want to deal with it, you avoid it. You only, you know, really engage there when it's going fine. Yeah, well, you're going to get those kinds of results. But yeah, that's a great little simple little book. Lots of easy to digest little chapters with a great diversity of life lessons. And I love that distinction of how to apply, you know, insights and perspectives in one arena to another.
To another one. Thank you so much, guys. You've been watching Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And our guest today is Scott Sargeant. Just incredible, the one and only. Scott, if people want to reach out with their personal questions or for any other reason, what's the best way? And of course, we will put all the links. The links are already below the video on Hummingbird Academy Today page on Facebook, so you guys can catch that. And what is the best way to reach out to you?
Well, you could certainly private message me through Facebook, and also my email, scott@scottsargeant.com. Either way, I'm happy to connect personally with people and do whatever I can to support them.
Thank you. And I would love to have you back on the show.
I'd love to come play again too. It's always a blast, always a pleasure.
Yes. One last piece of wisdom or your favorite quote, very quickly.
You know, I think this is a great quote for today and this times. It's the George Bernard Shaw quote. It says, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, and the unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. And therefore, all progress depends upon the reasonable man." I guess I should have said person to be politically correct with your audience. So, yeah, that's my quote for you. You can either be at the effect of the world or causing and creating the world.
Thank you, Scott. And you guys, well, I already said it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. If you guys find it valuable and whatever the most valuable part of our conversation with Scott today, please comment below on Facebook page or Instagram, and we would love to hear from you. You can do it here. You can reach directly to Scott for more questions to be answered. You can just let us know how it landed on you. Did you learn anything valuable? And until next time, thank you, and stay inspired and empowered, like Scott said.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks so much, Zhanna.
Thank you.
Take care.